These are the Chat City interviews from 103.2 Preston FM.
It's nice to welcome back into the studio Heather Crook and Steve Hallowell. So a very good morning to you both.
Morning,
good morning,
Hugh.
Hugh.
So any success there, guys, on the lottery?
Sorry.
I've won it twice.
Have you?
£10.
I thought you were going to add a few noughts on the end there, Steve.
No.
Hey, so you won't be coming to Denmark either then in May. Okay. So nice to have you back in again. And of course, Heather is the author or authoress of the Preston magazine and issue 17 about to be on the streets and in the coffee shops and in the libraries. And again, for those of you who don't know, Heather and Steve are in the studio monthly, and Heather, issue 17. So when did Preston magazine begin again? And I know I ask you this question every time we meet, but for the new listeners, just tell us when it began and why it came about.
It began in July 2012 because I wanted to get a Preston magazine out for the Guild in September. So that's how long it's been going.
And since then it's really taken off, and there's now, is it Penwitham and another magazine
I
elsewhere?
initially started a Penwitham magazine and then went on to do a Preston magazine, and I'm doing a Lost to Call magazine as well.
Wow. I'm still, I know we've met quite a few times now, but I just still find it fascinating that this magazine has been put together, and it's just gaining constantly publicity wherever I look, on the various websites, on Blog Preston, on many other websites. I was looking on social media this morning, and you just put in Preston magazine and it's popping up everywhere. So I bet when you put the first one together, did you think you'd be on the radio? You'd be
no.
Hey?
No, people in Australia read it, New Zealand.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? Because, of course, not only can you get it in the shops, can you get it in the library locally, you can also have a look at it online. So what's the content of issue 17?
We have a piece by... I was sent by the niece of James Green, who was a soldier in the First World War at Preston, and he wrote a diary of his time in the trenches, which is very interesting. And
because the story begins that he joined the army on September the 22nd, 1914, when war broke out. He says, I should have gone back and rejoined my old regiment, the Loyal North Lancs TT, with whom I had served 5 years, being discharged in 1913, and instead I joined the King's Liverpool. So a fascinating story. So that came to you from who, Heather?
From his niece, Rita Finlay.
And of course, more pertinent than ever this year, that, we're all talking about what was called the Great War, the First World War. So are you looking for other information from people if they have it for future
Yes,
copies
I'm looking
of the
for
magazine?
anything at all to do with the First World War, whether it be photographs, any memories people have of what the grandparents or great-grandparents did during the war, any work women did, anything to do with names on memorials. I'm also working with Preston Remembers. I volunteer for Preston Remembers, and I've set up a site on Flickr for a South Ribble Remembrance Archive.
Right. And we had somebody in a few weeks ago, and in fact I must find out where they're at the moment with their inquiries, because there's a memorial behind the Museum of Lancashire with no inscriptions and nobody knowing where that came from, or in fact how that came about.
In my dad's memoirs, who I read, A Preston Lad, he mentions standing at the War Memorial at St Mary's Church because that's where he went.
Right, so that is the memorial that we're talking about, that people are trying to find out at the moment, more information about it and the inscriptions on the memorial. And the diary of James Green, I take it that was his number at the side, is 30571. That was his army number, and a photograph of James Green. So did that come out of the blue to you? Somebody just got in touch with you with that information?
Somebody who's
and the
always
story?
read the magazine. I send it out to them monthly.
It really is fascinating.
They emailed to ask would I be interested in it and putting it in the magazine. And of course I was.
Yes, and one of the other stories there, Dennis Crompton, a Lancashire lad now living in New Zealand.
Yes.
So, as you say, people around the world reading the magazine. So, have you got an up-to-date instalment, A Preston Lad by your father, Arthur Eric Crook, to read for us?
I have, yes. It's A Preston Lad. It's by Arthur Eric Crook, and he was in the Brocklesview children's home called Ivybank during the 1920s. I think the best hiding I ever received was for the following incident. I had gone to the greenhouse. It was not really a greenhouse as we know them. It was a long brick-built lean-to that ran the full length of the gable end, and it had a glass roof. The sacks of potatoes were kept in there, and the large skips we called washing baskets, where all the soiled linen was deposited, ready to go to the workhouse laundry. At the far end, where the drain stood, was one of those old-fashioned squeezers, or wringing machines to give it its proper name. I had gone to use them to wring out some dusters that had been hand-washed. Whilst I was thus employed, in came Emily Sanger from next door, bringing some dirty washing to put in the skip marked female. She held up one of the articles and said, "Look at these." It was an article of underwear, blue with a thin white stripe, a pair of unmentionables. "Bet it's the first time you've seen a pair of these," she teased. "I saw Gladys Huxley's," I retorted, "when she fell in Lex Street." We both sat on our respective baskets. "Tell you what," she continued, "Doris Watson fancies you." "Hong Kong Harry's sister," I said. "Yep," she nodded with a twinkle in her eye. Doris and Harry had this nickname because they had previously lived in Hong Kong and been back in England about 6 months. They were posh. They lived on Fishwick View, number 32, I believe. It was only a stone's throw from Ivybank, and we shared the same panoramic view of the whole of Fishwick Bottoms, with the River Ribble dividing it from Quedale, Walton and Samlesbury, one of the most beautiful views in Preston. The home had a more oblique angled view, and it brought in Brockles Wood, hence our address, Brockles View. "You're codding," I said to Emily. "I'm not," she retorted. Wow, Doris Watson was one of the bonniest girls in school. She was very aloof, and all the boys thought she was stuck up and dare not accost her. She wore a velour hat, gloves and shoes, real posh she was. Anyway, I did not believe this tale and said so, and we laughed and joked a bit longer. Miss Hall heard our voices and looked through the pantry window and saw us sat there swinging our legs and gabbling away. "Knock, knock, knock," she banged on the window. "Cripes, hell," I muttered as we ran to our respective domiciles. Miss Hall was waiting at the porch door, anger, disgust and incredulity all chased across that grim visage. "You disgusting wretch," she screamed. "What were you talking and laughing about and sitting down to do it, almost next to each other?" We had broken the strictest rule of all, fraternising. She dragged me by the ear to the girls' home and Miss Taylor. We were lined up in front of these two outraged females. Emily didn't get clouted. I don't think Miss Taylor was that sort. She was gated for a month and no spending money for the same period. I was not confined to barracks, but she chased me round the house, striking me with the strap whenever she could for a good quarter of an hour. All the kids, the younger ones, were screaming, me as well. I never suffered in silence. If you tried to be brave and not cry, you got hit harder or longer. I yelled out after the first stroke or two. Miss Hall was out of puff and had to take a powder, so the day after she boxed my ears, for making her ill, as she put it. The headmaster, Daddy Lamb, queried the wheels when I went back to school, so I told him I had been misbehaving. It was a good job he hadn't seen my back. Everybody was subdued for about a week or so. After that display of anger, I did not get any pudding, pie or biscuits for a week, and forfeited my Saturday penny for 3 weeks. It seemed like 3 months. Nevertheless, after a suitable period of time, it was forgotten, and life resumed to its usual harsh and work-demanding way. I had broke the rules and had to pay the penalty. Fair enough. She had threatened to stop me going to the Sunday school field day, but she relented. And I still didn't believe that Doris Watson ever fancied me, and that Emily had been pulling my leg, and much later events proved me wrong. She said to someone she liked Erich Crook, and someone she had confided to chalked it on some boards. DW equals EC. I still feel big-headed about that, 60 years on. Incidentally, I never spoke to her. I was far too shy. I once stared at her and made her blush. The first Saturday I received my penny spending money after my super hiding, I bought a packet of Creole at Mrs. Held's shop that boasted the fag machine that delivered the goods. Then all of us went down Bezer Brook, got down the banking and smoked ourselves silly. We caught a few minnows or minnows with a jam jar some previous adventurer had left behind. At least living the life we did, experience a whole garnet of emotions that perhaps other kids did not experience. Pain, tiredness with all the work that was our lot to accomplish, the pleasure of getting away from it all and attending school. To me, the sheer delight of singing one's heart out, the excitement of how to spend our Saturday penny, a lucky bag maybe, what whoppers they were, or 20 aniseed balls, possibly 2 out of London mixtures. Fear reared its ugly head, fear of being found out for something we had done wrong and its consequences. And finally, the feeling of bliss getting into bed, relaxing, thinking through the events, then sinking into most times a dreamless sleep till 6 a.m. the next morning. When Mr. Brown was our headmaster, and as I have related our choir master, we had to learn all the classics, Londonderry Air, Sweet Lass of Richmond Hill, The Trout. I have forgotten its real title. The first line went, I stood beside a brooklet that sparkled on its way. Then one about the Baron. Today is my wedding day, £10,000 I'll give away. Who aloft thy head did rise, Forest Green, went another. Then one about a druid stood in a dark old wood of a distant northern land, all about the virtues of mistletoe. And finally one about a hermit in a wood. All these songs that Mr. Brown had to learn us to sing, he wrote out in tonic sol fa. Reams of black paper, about 2.5 feet wide, was draped over the blackboard, then eased over the top with his cane as we progressed. Hours upon hours he must have spent writing out the sharps and flats, clefs, minims, quavers, crotchets, breves and semi-breves, 2/4 time, 3/4, 4/6/8, etc. He must have been the most dedicated man to his music, and he tried to transmit it to his pupils. Unfortunately, not many appreciated his good intentions. Yet even today I can still remember the words and lines of most of the songs, and sing some of them in tonic sol fa, so at least it did not fall on deaf ears. After our music lesson, which was on a Friday, 3 till 4, we would sometimes have a silly half hour. All the boys in their turn had to tell a riddle or a joke. One day it came to the turn of Fishy Burns to recite something to us, and he did not know any. "Come on, Burns," shouted Daddy Brown. "Surely you know a tackler's tale or a Pat and Mick story?" No, he remained silent. Eventually he could manage something. He began, "A riddle Marie. I saw a black man pee. He peed so fast it made me laugh. A riddle Marie." For a few seconds there was stunned silence, then roars and screams of laughter from the assembled boys, led by Mr. Brown, who had to wipe his eyes at this wholly unexpected effort of Burns to attempt to tell a funny joke. At least he succeeded and got the biggest laugh ever.
And there we are. That was Heather Crook reading from A Preston Lad by Father Arthur Eric Crook. So, Heather, once again, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And that's in the issue 17 of the Preston magazine, with a photograph of Preston Bus Station on the front, the iconic Preston Bus Station. And I was just having a look, a couple of fascinating things. I mean, particularly for anyone that's been along to see 12 Years a Slave, which is really popular, of course, at the cinema at the moment, that in 1856 it was reported in the Preston Chronicle that on Wednesday evening a man of colour named Andrew Jackson delivered an interesting lecture in the Temperance Hall, being a narrative of his escape from slavery in the southern states of America. And that was in the Preston Chronicle way back in 1856, and a story there, 1844, about a bird stuffer. So a purple-crested heron was last week caught near Yarmouth and transmitted alive on Tuesday to Mr. Richard Sharple's bird stuffer of this town. Wow, fascinating stuff there. So the Preston magazine, issue 17, you can pick it up around Preston and also online. And we've also got Steve with us, Steve Hallowell. So Steve, a very good morning to you.
Good morning again.
I always think of Steve as Mr. Preston in taverns and beer houses man.
That's the one.
That's the one. So, Steve, since we last met, I know you do a regular contribution to the local newspaper. Any plans of any talks coming up with the summer months ahead?
Not pub related. Of one or two in the autumn that I'll let you know about closer to the time, but not during the summer months.
Right, and they're not going to be about the pubs and taverns and inns then of Preston?
Well, certainly one of them is in the autumn, but most of them that I'm doing at the moment are about a man called Moses Holden, an old Prestonian that I'll perhaps tell you about sometime else. There certainly isn't any time this morning.
Right.
Once I start, I can't finish. You see.
It sounds a bit of a mystery, that though. But he was a Prestonian.
He was he was actually born in Bolton, but at the age of 5 he moved to Preston, and he lived until he was 87. So he's as far as I'm concerned, he's a Prestonian.
Right. And again, I mean, like Heather, what is really interesting here is the people around the world that have made contact, people who read the sites, read the information that both of you put together. It really is fascinating, isn't it, what media can do?
I think
and
it's
social
a sign of
media.
the times. Yeah, it's a sign of the times that information is so easily spread that it's there if you want to make use of it.
And I know that you were looking for various people related to either landlords or landlords around Preston. Do you still get people who make contact with you?
Oh, yeah. Almost a daily basis I get contact from somebody with information about somewhere. They don't have to be related. It's just knowledge, some of which can't really be authenticated, but it's nice just to get anecdotal evidence, and hopefully all the little strands will at least get somewhere close to the truth.
Right. So still wanting people to make contact if they have information, a history to do with the inns, pubs of Preston and taverns, etc.?
Very much so, yeah. There's far too many people sitting on information, and they need to let it go. They need to let it go.
It's fascinating, though, isn't it? Out of the blue, that just something or somebody makes contact with.
And sometimes they're so thrilled because they've found something that that they didn't know before, and that being the case, they're then willing to extend your knowledge by adding to it with their own. So it's a two-way thing. And to then see it published and see it brought back to life must be a great thing for many people. Yeah. That's as far as the website goes. I'm also in the process of writing a book about local pubs in Preston, which hopefully will be going to the printers at the end of March.
Yes. All right, so in a few weeks' time.
Yes, just another month, and that should be out in time for Father's Day. So
there we are. Well, we shall have to have you back on then at the time, which would be in another month's time when the book's about to be published.
That'd be great.
And I think last time we met, I think there were meetings coming up at the Minster. Anything?
There'll be another talk at the Minster on the first Monday of March.
This Monday.
So that's Monday, yeah.
This coming Monday, yeah. Do you know what it is, Nelly?
We'll just see if we can find the topic. This is the Preston Historical Meeting, isn't it, to meet at the Minster? And I think they usually start around about 7:30, don't they?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, it's a talk about the Titanic.
Oh.
Titanic Talks, that should go down well.
Yes, it should.
By Nigel Hampson.
That's right. And if you don't know the end of the story, then you need to come along, don't you? So,
absolutely.
Yes. So that's this Monday evening, and that's at the Minster again.
It's at the Minster at 7:30.
7:30.
If you're a non-member, it's £2.50. 7:15.
7:15.
Beg your pardon. 7:15, and it's £2.50 for non-members.
Okay, and they are well attended because sometimes you get 200 people, don't you, attending?
230 last month, apparently.
So the person on Monday again who's going to be talking about Titanic
Nigel
is
Hampson.
Nigel Hampson.
Titanic Talks.
Okay. Well, can I thank you both for coming back into Chat
You're
City
welcome.
this morning?
Yeah.
And when we meet again, it's going to be the end of March, and we shall be thinking also of long summer days and sunshine and
That's a nice thought.
It is a nice thought. So I'll see you in a few weeks' time, and thanks for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hughie.
If you've got news, views or events you'd like to share with us and the Chat City team, why not give us an email? chatcity@preston.fm.